As I've evolved from my humble beginnings, I've had the opportunity to be in a lot of rooms. The more people I've met, the more stories I've learned. Stories of passion, trauma, triumph, and resilience. These are the stories that inspire us, that remind us of the human spirit. We can all learn from the untold stories in each of us, regardless of where you come from. And now, I'm excited to share these stories with you. This is EPEC Conversations. Welcome to EPEC Live. I'm your host, Delrisha, and I'm excited you've decided to join me for the first ever live podcasting experience. Y'all, this is the very first time I'm doing a live event. Thank you for being here. EPEC Live is an extension of my podcast, EPEC Conversations, that is currently in production. We did a soft launch in February, and we are talking to people who have overcome extraordinary circumstances. Maybe they were the first in their family to graduate college or high school. Maybe they are somebody who's dealing with a terminal illness at a young age or an older age. Maybe there's somebody who has experienced the carceral system. There are so many different stories that are right here in our neighborhood and in our world. And because I've had the opportunity to travel and meet people and talk to people, I'm so genuinely curious about those things that make people move and that drive folks, even in like the hardest days of their lives. And so part of this platform is to create opportunities for people to share how they navigated that. And so the last thing that I'm going to say before we get ready to transition into this presentation today is I am a music head. I love music. I love Bay Area culture. And I'm really interested in interviewing people who are artists, who are culture shapers, who are the creators, who are the OGs in this space, right? And so Aneesa is one of my dear friends. And I'm so happy to have her here to kick off this series. She's an incredible artist, and one of the things that I deeply admire about you, Aneesa, is you're a student of the world. And I think it's one thing in this age, a lot of people are really into like the clickbait and what people are just so engaged in superficial things. And I think for you, your art is very serious for you. I've been in a lot of spaces with Aneesa where she can rip jazz history to everybody in the room, giving people game on the musicianhood of it. And my line sister in the back, Jazz, who's also an artist, is the same way. And so I'm super happy to have you here and for you all to hear what she has to say. So without further ado, welcome, Aneesa. Hey, girl. Cheers. So I'm really happy that you're here. And there's so much that I've been wanting to talk to you about. And so let's just start. For those who don't know you, who are just being introduced to who you are, who is Aneesa? How did you grow up? And how did you get drawn to the strings?
Great question. I'm also very happy to be here, Dale. So yeah, I mean, I'm from Oakland, California, from the Bay Area. The youngest of 7 children. I got a lot of nieces and nephews. Okay, I mean, nobody in my family is a musician, but that doesn't mean we're not a musical family. Everybody in my family has a certain gift. Like my mom is excellent with remembering lyrics. She knows the whole arrangement. She can sing all the trumpets. My dad he just got like this little voice when he plays singing, you know. And he also used to manage a little jazz trio in San Francisco when he was in his 20s. And so I got into music because, I mean, essentially I was just like a kid who was I was just a regular kid. I was, you know, you can say I was bad, but you know. But I was getting in some trouble transitioning from elementary into middle school, and my mom was like, you need to do something with all this energy, and so you need to pick an instrument to play. And I was like, fine, I'll play the violin, whatever, Mom. And, and I got to class, and they were like, oh, who wants to play the violin? And everyone raised their hands, and then they were like, well, everyone can't play the violin, so who wants to play the giant double bass? And I was like, whatever, fine, I'm just here because, you know, I can't have anything. You know, I'm over it. I'm just like, whatever, I'm just here for a ball, can't even play the violin, whatever. So I picked this up, and I just knew what to do. Like, I just read the page, and I was like, oh, D, G, I just understood it. And the teacher was like, well, have you played any other instruments? And I was like, no. I never saw this. I didn't even know what this was.
This wasn't
No, I never was like, I want to play that thing. I never saw it anywhere. I never went to a concert and saw it or anything. It's like it chose me.
So this was something that you stumbled upon, but then you chose to grab it, and you chose to invest in yourself, and you chose to stick with it. So tell us about that process of learning.
Well, since I was a little kid, I always wanted to be a singer. I had no intentions of playing this monstrosity. I hate carrying it. I love it though. It's my baby, but it's just very.
It's a heavy baby.
You know, it's ridiculous. Where can you fit it? Where can you take it? I can't fly with it. It's a lot, but I stuck with it because it was like my passport. It got me into Oakland Youth Orchestra, SF Jazz High School All-Stars, San Francisco Youth Orchestra. It got me into places with artists and introduced me to people like Patrice Rushen and Rodney Whitaker and just all these people who come and teach at these kinds of camps for talented youth. YMP, Young Musicians Program, which doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately, but it used to be at Cal Berkeley. So it really wasn't my choice. It wasn't like I wanted to do this until I heard Charles Mingus, Haitian Fight Song. And I heard he's like one of the greatest bass players. If you don't know him, look up Charles Mingus, Haitian Fight Song, and he has this long intro, and he's just like, it's like Michael Jordan of bass. And I was like, oh, I had no reference of what it could do. It was just like, dun, 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 from like band class or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I hadn't put it into something that I thought was cool. When I heard him play it, I was like, that's what that can do? Bet. So I started getting, and then like I said, all the teachers were like, you need to do this. This is your gift. It wasn't really a choice. Everybody was.
Along the way, people were affirming you, and that kind of cemented what your
Yeah,
path
I wasn't really going to do it. But I had teachers who was like, no, you have something. This is your thing.
Yeah. Can you talk about your experience as a Black woman in the space? What does that look like? So you have, I think when we think about jazz and music and R&B and really every major genre, we were talking about this last night, is rooted in Blackness, is rooted in Black history and Black culture. But in today's world, things are kind of separated. You don't have to think about where the music is coming from, right? And so I think for a Black person, we can kind of get lost. If I wanted to be a musician, right, I'd have to actually go actively and seek my communities, because in schools, it's not really cultivated anymore. And there are just all these different ways that people are there's more distance between Black people and Black art that Black people create. And so just in wondering about your experience as a Black woman navigating this space, how have you found mentors and supporters and community to even stay on the path?
That's a good question. I think that, there's different aspects of being in, the music industry at large, the jazz community. It keeps getting smaller. Then you have academia, which the only popular or Black music taught in schools and higher education is jazz. So that's the reason I chose to study jazz, is because there's programs, there's summer camps, and also it's along with gospel, it's gospel and jazz are the two major rivers that connect to the sea of all the other genres of music in America. It's not just Black music, it's taken a life of its own, and it's affected people of all colors, races, nations. It's a global culture now. So that separation, even I could this, you asked me a loaded question. You asked me a loaded question because it's very deep. Jazz, even when I was in the high school All-Stars, I was the only Black woman in pretty much all of my schooling. Up until my master's program, there was another female bassist named Aneesa Owens who's killing the game right now, and that was the only other woman. I could be forgetting some people, but it was scarce. I'll put it like that, especially in jazz. I knew some Black people who did classical even more than jazz, to be honest, because I think there's this feeling that in order to validate yourself, you have to do whatever's oldest, and like classical music, another music that is started by a certain group of people, right? Europeans, but is now global. You know, it's all over the world. It's a means by which people teach instruments. Like these instruments, the cello, the viola, and the violin, they come from classical music. They come from the 1700s in Italy and France and the UK and, you know, places like that. The music as a whole, you know, the oldest like written music in this Western language, you know, obviously there's African music who goes back. It's oral though. There's no like, it's not written and it's not recorded, so there's no way of keeping a record of it. But classical music has a history that's over 200 years old on paper, you know? So I think that being a Black woman navigating this space in jazz, music is another conversation, but I'll just speak to jazz at this time. Often for me, it felt like because the school system, the people in, like I said, all my high school programs were white. They were Asian. I was the only Black person in a lot of my programs because this is extracurricular. Who has money? You know how expensive these are? Yeah. Who has money to buy, you know, $4,000 and $5,000 trumpets and $6,000 and $7,000 basses and, you know, play for lessons? And this is a very expensive, luxurious thing to do. Like, you know, like I felt that was another thing. I felt fancy. It was like an escape, you know, being from inner city, being from the hood. Like, people would like leave me alone, like, oh, that's that girl that played that big old thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was like a protection for me. You know what I'm saying? And that kind of elevated me beyond like my actual circumstances. That's why I said it's like my passport. So I took it as a privilege, and I'm a person who likes to focus on the benefits of being different, as opposed to the pitfalls or the negative elements of it. So yeah, I'm different. Like you know what I mean? Like being in college,
You're okay with
I'm
that.
okay with it. Like, you know, people see it differently than me. People see their music different than me. Their experience is different than mine. Right. They can't see it like me because I am a descendant of those who made this music. That doesn't mean that their interpretation of how to play it is not important. It just means that this music has gone beyond the people who made it. Right. But it's still important for those who created it to have a voice. And so I just was like, bet, y'all don't like it, but that's cool. You know, somebody will, you know?
Yeah, you know, you talk a lot about, you know, being the only Black woman really in the vast majority of your experiences. I've experienced the same thing. I did go to a historically Black college, so obviously I wasn't the only there. And I went to a historically Black college for women, so I also wasn't the only woman there, right? But I studied abroad in China, and when I studied abroad, and actually even in thinking back on it, I'm like, man, I felt imposter syndrome then, but didn't have the language or the words to like recognize it or identify it. And I didn't feel safe enough to actually talk to somebody about it, right? Because I was othered. So I studied abroad through NYU. I went to Bennett College, the oldest historically Black college for women, but a very small liberal arts college in Greensboro, North Carolina. Also the birthplace of the 1960s sit-in movement, FYI, little known fact. But the program that I did, there were 4 Black people in total, and I was the only Black woman out of a program of about 200 students across the country. And so when I think about what I've learned now and the language that I now have and the experiences that I've had professionally, I know now, like, oh, I was scared because I didn't really have, and I had great friends in China, right? But there was another element of like, academic worthiness or competitiveness in my mind that I was entertaining, and it was on a loop while I was in school and having these really positive experiences. And I think a lot of times the first question is, what experiences have you had with imposter syndrome as a Black woman in the genre, and how has that impacted your artistry?
I mean, I feel like an imposter all the time, to be frank, just because. Like, and I'm kind of growing out of it, but I feel like lately, I'm like, all right. I had a show last night in San Jose, and last night, I know it wasn't my best night, but I knew it wasn't gonna be my best night because I only had 1 hour for rehearsal and I was late to sound. It was a lot. I knew it, but I felt more, even with everything, like I knew I felt so confident just because I know what I'm capable of, what I can do under different circumstances. So that was reaffirming for me. But when I was younger, the things that I struggled with was like, things that, theory. Like for example, when I got to college, when I got to USC, it was only 4 people in my class, tiny class. And they all were like pianists and they knew all the theory. They knew every chord and half diminished and this and double upper structured triads. And they knew all this stuff and I was like, root 5, root. I was like, but the teachers loved me because I had a great feel. My rhythm was exceptional. But my harmonic and melodic concept wasn't that strong. So that's just actually you sucked. That's what I'm realizing, that is a lot of my imposter syndrome is just that, no, you just need to work on your stuff. You just need to develop. You're not an imposter, you just don't know what you're doing. And that's a difference. An imposter is when someone knows they're incapable and pretends. That's a real imposter. You know you're not a damn police officer, but you're pretending to be a police officer. Imposter syndrome is when you're struggling with an aspect of what you do or some part of yourself, and you're making it seem like you don't belong here just because you have sharpening, you need work on something. Mm-hmm. And that's how I've learned to kind of separate it.
Yeah. Yeah. Raise your hand if you've experienced imposter syndrome in this look around. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of affirming. Okay, we all know imposters in here. I'm just kidding. No, but I think that's really, it's an important conversation because I know like when I went to grad school, they made sure to bring all the students of color in our own students of color orientation, and then they had an explicit workshop on imposter syndrome. And that was the first time that I'd ever heard the term like used in that way. But after like years now, we're 3 years out from that, I can literally pinpoint every experience that I've had where like maybe I didn't recognize it at the time, but now I know like, oh, I wasn't feeling too good about that, and therefore I didn't perform the way that I know I would have if that wasn't a loop in my head. Yeah. So I imagine that is, that can be a challenge, especially because art already is such a vulnerable thing to be sharing. Yeah. So I want to get into that too. So let's talk about your creative process. So you're a musician, you play multiple instruments, you sing, do you dance? Look.
I've been working on it.
What is the process of creating for you, and how do you manage your creative process? Because I know for me, it can get a little crazy in my head upstairs, but I know that, for you, there's writing the actual notes, right, and then there's writing the actual lyrics. Like there's so many levels to like your kind of art. So explain to us, what does the creative process for Aneesa look like?
Honestly, there are aspects of creating that were easier when I was like completely independent. Like my first 2 albums, like I was completely in charge. I made every creative decision. I made every pretty much financial decision, recording, timing, everything. There are aspects of that were easier. Now that I have a team, I'm relying on people. I have to wait on when they say go. I have to kind of seek, not seek, but allow their approval. I have to allow another opinion to say what's good and what's not in my art, which is challenging, but I asked for it. I sought it because I got to a point where I was like, okay, this is as far as I'm gonna go by myself. So the creative process of actually,
like you have an idea in your head, like where do you?
Yeah, that shit you just hear it. It just comes. Like mostly either while, like it's mostly late at night or early in the morning. It could be anything though. It could be a conversation I'm having with you. Like I'll be talking to my dad. He'll say something. I'm like, oh, hold on, ding, 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 ding. I just, it happens all the time. I wake up in the middle of the night and I have like a voice full of just phone full of voice notes, which most artists will tell you that's what we do. And then it's the same process pretty much everybody. You have the melody, you have the lyrics. You had a melody, you maybe develop the lyrics later. Sometimes it all comes at once. For me, I used to arrange, like my first 2 albums, I completely wrote, arranged every horn part, every background vocal, every drum beat, everything. And now I'm in a more collaborative process where I don't even try to write all that anymore. I just do what I do best, which is the bass, the vocals, the lyric, or the melody and the lyrics. But I'm still open there. I'm allowing myself to just kind of co-create, because all the best records that we love, the Michael Jackson and the Marvin Gaye and the, and James Brown and even though those guys were absolutely spearheading their operation, they allowed others to support them. I mean, Quincy Jones and Michael was always arguing. They always had beef, Well, Quincy wasn't told, Michael didn't want to put the at the beginning of Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, that violin, woo, he didn't want that. Michael was like, take that out, it's messing up my vocal. And Quincy was like, hell no, that's the whole damn song, So as artists, it's like, as hands-on and as sensitive as we are about our work, it's kind of like children. You can't tell the teacher not to input and give your child something that they could use. You can't tell his aunties or your child's grandparents not to do what they do. You may not agree, you may not do it that way, but that doesn't mean that the child can't learn from and benefit from what somebody else has to give them. Because the thing is about a song, once I put it out, it's not mine anymore. It's no longer mine. And so I've been learning to kind of let go of it earlier rather than after it's already out. Like, it was never mine to start with, because I was sleeping and I woke up and it came to me. So it wasn't really mine. I'm just the vessel who it came to today.
Playing information.
Yeah, exactly. It just came to today. And if I don't write it down, somebody else gonna get it.
Okay, so for you, I know for me as a creative, sometimes I could sit on ideas. Well, how many artists, freelancers, creatives do we have just in this room? So okay, so we have a good number of people here. How many of you guys who are not artists or creatives, you have an idea that you've been sitting on for a while? Okay, you see some debates over there. Raise your hand in general if you have an idea that you've been sitting on, and for whatever reason, access to capital, resources, friends, money, you just have not done it. Raise your hand just so I can visually see. Okay, so we have a lot of people in here that are full with ideas, right? And I think that ideation is like one of the greatest gifts I feel like God gave me. Like the power to ideate is insane to me, right? And so I think about, I have Pri in the back who's a good mentor and friend. We work together at Pivotal, and it's an organization that supports foster youth in getting support academically as well as with employment. And one of the things that I learned when I was a coach, I would do direct service work with young people impacted by the system. And you would ask them, like, well, what do they want? What do you want? For you. And I see Myra and Aurelia as well, who did that work with me in the studio. I would ask, like, well, what do you want to do, right? Because that was a big part of our ethos is we don't tell young people what they want to do. Like, they know what they want to do, or we support them, right? We create opportunities for them to discover what they want to do, right? You don't tell them what they should do. And when I would talk to the young people that I was working with, they had so much going on in their lives that the literal thought of like deciding what you want for yourself was not really an option, right? And so it was like you could ask people, what do you want to do? Even if you have the best intentions and you have all the resources, and people still don't know. And I think this life kind of beats that out of us. The older we get, the more responsibilities we get, the more connected we get to whatever we have going on. We get entangled in that childlike expression of imagination and creating. It kind of dissipates over time. And almost right before your eyes, a lot of times you don't even realize it's happening, right? And so I'm setting the stage because I want to ask you, like, what is, like, yes, you're naturally an artist, but there are a lot of people who are artists, you know what I'm saying, who don't actually create, who don't actually put their work out, who don't actually leave it out for people to judge and take on and, hold on to. And I know for me, when I get stuck in my big ideas, sometimes it just gets parked there because I'm scared of the potential. You know what I'm saying? I'm scared of all the people that are gonna hold on to it. So for you, what does that feel like, or what is that process of like powering through anyway, in spite of that? Because you're making a choice every day to do that. So I want you to like share with us all these hands that were raised of people who have ideas that they haven't done anything with. What would you offer them?
Yeah, man. I mean, it is a choice. It's completely a choice. I think that the things in life, like, I just gotta paint a little picture real quick too.
Shooter.
Because, you know, when I was younger, right, when I was first doing my first album, my first little video shoots, I did 3 videos for my first album. I was in college, I was working full time on a TV show, and I was working on the album, and Patrice West was producing the album, and I was making videos, and I mean, I don't even know how I had the energy for all that, even though I'm still doing comparable things today. But then I would have these super grand ideas. I had this original video for my first video. I was like, all right, we're gonna go through the ages from the 20s to 30s to 40s to 50s to 60s, the 70s, with costume and wardrobe and all of that. And when I started looking at the costs, I had to really, really scale it down. I said, my budget is about $2,000. That's what I can do. And so what can I do for that? And this is for my Simpin video. And I wound up using my sister's house, okay, and having somebody come over and having some fruit and a little bed and a little band. And that was what we could do for the budget we had. And so from then on, I noticed that my ideas, like, I wouldn't even shoot for the big stuff anymore. Like, I instantly started thinking, okay, well, what can I do for the absolute cheapest possible way? How can I maximize on what I have? And I think that is the biggest thing that has allowed me to continue creating. Because it's like, all right, I believe that one day I might get the budget to execute the high, ridiculous stuff. But let's just scale back. And what can we do today with what we got? I think that that's the best thing. Like, you might have this grand idea, but you don't do it because of how much it'll take to get that done. So just think, okay, if I can't, do a giveaway for the homeless at the Santa Clara football stadium, you know what I'm saying? Maybe I can just do it on the corner of this intersection or something. You know what I'm saying? Like,
small scale ways.
Exactly. So I just think that kind of really looking at what you have, who do I know, who do I know around me that can help me? Who is, like, the man who filmed that video, two of the people who filmed my videos have gone on to do, like, great things. Like, one of the person who shot my video, Letter of Recommendation, they now film for Drake, Kendrick. They're shooting videos for huge artists. And my video, because it was so creative, was a huge part of their resume.
Created that platform.
Created, exactly, something to show that, hey, we can execute at this level. And it was a small budget, it was about $5,000. So they tell me to this day, like, bro, like, your video changed the game for us. But they did it because of the portfolio. So find people that you guys kind of want the same thing, that whatever you guys are doing together mutually supports and benefits each other. If you're a seamstress and you know a stylist, y'all work together, build up the forward portfolio. Okay, I'm thinking this, I got the vision, but she can actually put it together. And then y'all mutually inspire each other as long as you can. Partnerships are not always forever. Right. You know what I mean? And we can be okay with temporary partnerships and just coming together on one project. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's really important. One of the things, I got into this feedback loop. So in 2020, I just graduated from grad school in 2019. I had like a little job in between while I was figuring out what I wanted to do. And long story short, baby, it didn't work out and I was unemployed for 2.5 years. It was a bit of a shit show. However, we prevailed, okay? But I say that to say, like, during that time, I found myself, I hustle when it's time, but then, like, when I don't need it, then I scale all the way back, right? And, like, the process of, like, creating and, like, putting your ideas out there kind of requires you to do it anyway, right? Year round, in spite of it. And so one of the things that I kept telling myself, I said, everybody is so concerned about what they look like. Everybody's so concerned about looking goofy that the goofy people are getting the bags.
Period.
Okay? Okay? You cannot be so concerned about looking goofy. You gotta just look goofy.
Bro, I don't hate I do not hate on anybody that's out here getting into music. I don't care what level you do it at. I don't care if it's ABC rhymes, SpongeBob. I don't care. Yeah. You out here getting it, you doing it, it's hot. Dog, I have no hateration because what people don't understand, it's hard for everybody. Right. It's hard for the cool kids just as hard as it is for the goofy ones. Mm-hmm. Like, it's hard for everybody to break through and make an impact in this world, no matter what the genre It's hard for everybody. So, you know, another thing I would say to people is find something to appreciate, even about those that you met. If you find yourself hating on somebody, really identify why that is, because that's really an opportunity for growth for you. Because, you know, there was an artist, we're not gonna name names, but there was an artist back in about 2017 that really got under my skin. It really bothered me. And I realized it was because of what she was saying, the content of her music, you know, and I thought she was very talented, and I thought she was very capable musically. It wasn't like a musical diss to her. It was just with your voice and what you were saying. You know, why would you say that and have all these women think of that? And then I saw so many women who related to these kind of like self-loathing, self-deprecating lyrics, and so many women were just like, loved it, and I was just taken aback. It was kind of like a revelation for me, like, wow, this is how women really feel. Then I had the opportunity to meet this artist, and I saw her and how she wouldn't carry herself, and I realized she meant everything she was saying. She really was insecure. That was her truth. That's what she was going through. Who would have to judge how she felt and how she expressed her creativity? Because I'm not there in that place, or I think that that's a whack approach to life or whatever. That's why it resonated with so many other women, because she was being real.
You know, learning how to be real is its own thing. You know, like people, I think we're born being real. We're ourselves. If you ever saw my 3-year-old niece, you would know that she's about as real gets. You know what I'm saying? But again, it's that age and time, and when we've had time with grief and heartbreak and being isolated or being looked at funny or weird, poverty, all this stuff that kind of keeps it in some ways, you know, makes it more difficult to be real because life hardens us, right? And so that piece, that element of being real, I realized like leaning into like those parts where you feel shame, that level of vulnerability actually creates a lot of opportunity for you when you're confident in it. Have you found that to be true too?
I mean, yes, because, you know, I used to write from I wasn't even thinking about me. I would write from like how I want to be perceived. I would write from like, this is what I think the world should know, as opposed to like, this is how I feel inside. You know, and that's the most difficult, honest, raw, vulnerable thing, is to say the real truth about like, this is how I feel. And the songs that I've written in this space, now that I've come to a place of like this true courage, this like self-acceptance of, okay, this is how I feel. I know I'm not gonna feel this way, you know, but it's what I've realized about art and music is that being an artist is a series of capturing, collecting, perfecting, and creating moments. It's all just moments. You know, you can't be afraid of the moment. This is how you feel. You feel like you want to kill your ex. Okay, are you actually gonna do it? But that's how you feel. You know what I mean? And it's dangerous. You can say, well, that's suggestive and this culture and climate, but like, there's something liberating about that, you know, and something very bold about that. And I used to criticize that. So now it's like, exactly, I've written songs about that moment. Okay, I do want my ex back right now. I wish he would come back, you know, or I am tired of the way that the world is operating, or, you know, I feel alone. Things that you don't want to say. Yeah, you don't want to say, but, you know, it's funny because this thing that happened to us over the past few years, that happened to the entire globe, changed so many things, but it forced such inward reflection. And if you didn't change during the past 2-3 years, there's no hope for you. You should just go back home or just lay down or something, because if you didn't take all of that time and go deep and look at yourself then there's you know, I don't know when you're gonna have that opportunity ever again. You know what I mean? So
How would you say you've changed since the pandemic?
I'm just like you said, I'm realer, I'm more vulnerable. I had the time to really sit and look at what I was doing, why I was doing it, what places I was acting from. You know, was this love or fear? What was I afraid of? What are my fears? And I can identify because I had a chance to slow down and just kind of reframe and properly categorize, give a name, give a label, give something. If you can name something, you have power over it. You can solve it, yeah. Yeah, So being able to name my issues and just say, okay, and notice them. Like, okay, that's you popping up again. Hey, imposter syndrome. Hey, self-critical. Hey, you know what I'm saying? Like, what's up? Yeah, like my friends. Exactly. Like, okay, you're here today. What do you need? Let's talk about it, and let's move on, because you can't run my life. You can visit, but you can't stay forever, boo.
Yeah, that's the word. What Charlamagne say? Drop the clues bombs on that. But I think what you're talking about is like managing that when it comes up, those feelings, those innermost feelings that might not be the most pleasant. And I think that is the difference in being able to get through it and being like kind of stifled by it over a longer period of time, is recognizing it.
Exactly, and I'm blessed. I recognize that I'm blessed, because when I was suffering through different pains or heartbreaks or whatever, the things of life, I'm like, dog, I can write a song. I'm like, everybody can't just go write a song and I can just listen to it over and over and cry to it, and it's exactly about my situation, and then it's a hit. Well, will be a hit.
The hits is on their way.
or I just noticed that other people resonate with it because of me, like the fact that you can get a bag off of the worst moments of your life. Yeah. And I used to be like, I had shit wrong. I had it backwards. I used to be like, well, Mary J, and they only like her when she's sad and miserable, and Adele, and there's these artists who kind of profit off of that. But at the same time, what's wrong with that? Like, if you can help other people through a battle, a trying time in their life, and you helped yourself through it with this music, and now you're just eating for life.
Yeah. So you've had the opportunity to tour with a lot of names, actually, and you've been doing your music, making your way on the music circuit. Mm-hmm. You've opened for different folks, Umi, Tiana, you were on the, of course, on the music in the back. Talk to us about what it's like working with different artists, and maybe even speak to what that feels like. Like, these are people that we grew up with, or maybe peers in the space that are excelling. What does that look like when you go from being like the everyday kind of like the girl with that big old instrument, right, to like the girl that's performing in front of these stages and these large audiences of people? And what does that feel like, that transition point?
First, working with artists, and then the transition. Yeah. So working with artists is like a cheat code, A lot of artists, especially in today's day and age, but they don't get an opportunity to do that. A lot, like I don't know if there was a live the other day with Tyrese and Tank, and they was talking about that. I don't know if you guys saw that one where Tyrese and Tank and TGT, and they had like a TV performance, and it was like so bad, and everybody was like off key, but and people forgot the words. It was just so bad. But like, they could still sing, and they were just like overcompensating with hella runs and stuff. Yeah. So they was talking about that experience and what happened, and so Tyrese was like, well, I never knew the backgrounds, because he never sang background. He said, I was always a lead. And Tank was kind of roasting him for that, like, well, that's part of the education, that's part of the thing, And amongst musicians, to each other, we all have like our, well, you didn't do this and you didn't do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, life is competitive. I love it though. But working under, like, by supporting another artist, like I work with Umi, Tiana Taylor, Duckworth, Candace Springs, Jose James, working with a different artist is like, especially when you know you want to be an artist. I knew all along that I wanted to be an artist. So I'm here, but I'm like, I'm gonna do what they say. I'm not gonna steal the show. I'm gonna sing when they tell me to sing. I'm gonna, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm gonna be as supportive to make this as better of an experience for everybody as possible. But it's kind of like you get the experience of touring and all that without having to pay for it. Your name not on the bill. You know, if the show go bad, you know, even if I'm playing with whoever I'm playing with, if the show go bad, nobody gonna say, oh, the bass player was, don't nobody even know me most of the time. You feel me? It's gonna be like, damn, what's the name? That her show was not good or his show was not good. So it removes the pressure off of you and it gives you a chance to just get paid to practice.
And also see how things are.
See how things work, how to plan, how to schedule, what type of people you might need on your team, what type of show you're gonna have, because I've been a part of shows that's just a band. Like, we don't travel with nobody, like quartet, and it's just us. We load all our own equipment, you know, and we're playing just straight up jazz. So every night it might be a different set, and we get to just rip. We just get to just go crazy, you know, every night. And then I've played on sets where it's a 35-person crew. You know what I mean? There's hair, makeup, wardrobe, lights, dancers, you know what I mean? And it's the same show every single night, and it's all cued and prepped, and there's lights, and there's backing tracks, and you better not miss a step, and you got your clicks, you know what I'm saying? So those different experiences also just give me a chance, like, okay, I do like this pre-programmed idea of knowing exactly what you want to do, but I also like this free element of like, you know what I'm saying?
Very much a free
vibe,
free go.
Yeah, because to me, when I go watch, I don't want to see the same show I saw last night, just as a viewer. When you come to my city, or when you come to the city I'm in, or when I see you, I don't want to get the same thing that Chicago, that St. Louis, that Detroit, that New York got, and all this difference. Hey, New York, and it's the exact same. The bigger you get as an artist, but you know what I'm saying. The bigger you get as an artist, you get to the Taylor Swift, the Beyonce level and all that, they have 50 trucks and crews and double of everything because one has to stay here and the next one has to go ahead to the next place and set up. So there's no room to improvise, you know? But what I appreciate, I don't want to see the same show, I'm sorry. If I can go and watch a show on YouTube and it's the exact same as me going in that stadium and waiting in line and parking and can't find service and my Uber and all of that, to see the same thing that could be on YouTube, it's not worth it for me. I like artists who, you do a different little set every night. You don't do the same songs. There's parts of your show that is improvised. There's parts of your show that's without the click, you know, without any backing tracks. It's just acoustic with the band. Like, I look for those kinds of things as a viewer because I want to see what you can do right now. You know what I'm saying?
So when you think about all the shows that you've gone, all the shows you've had the opportunity to support, and all the artists you've had the opportunity to work with, what does that say? How is that honed what you want for yourself when you are the one that's traveling with your band and your staging and your vans? What is that like? Like, what are the things that you're like, I for sure want to make sure that this is in place when I have concerts, or this is the first thing I'm getting rid of? I don't know why artists do this. What are kind of some of those things that we don't really know about unless we're talking to an artist?
I want the best sound men in the game. Okay, the cat who runs board of what's going to be in my ears or in my monitors on stage of what I'm hearing and what the audience hearing. I want them to be like crazy. I want them to be like, everybody shut up, there's frequencies, it's ringing out. Like, I want them to be mad scientists.
Sound is so important.
It's the whole show.
It's the whole show.
It's the whole show. And you know, when you have a lot of components to your show, for me, the biggest thing is I just don't want to ever stray too far from the music. People are here to hear music. You know, as much as you can add elements of dance and showmanship and wardrobe and lights and all of that, I don't ever want to let those things surpass the music. Music comes first, the sound, the musicianship, the band, like, because so many people treat the band like an afterthought, especially today, like, that's the new thing. You know, the band is an afterthought. A lot of times the band isn't even really on stage with the artist. They're just kind of, which is cool. That's totally fine. That's different. Like, that's kind of like Broadway. You know, the band is in a pit, the orchestra pit, you know, or ballet. That's actually an ancient tradition that's kind of coming back into the forefront. But to me, you know, as a musician who is an artist, you know, playing that double side, I feel like a spy when I'm around other artists, to be honest. I just be like, or, you know, I'm like, yeah, I'm just a bass player, you know, because I don't like necessarily just be in their face like, yeah, so I'm an artist, you know, can you do a feature with me? Like, I don't necessarily, you know, approach it like that. I just approach it as a professional. I'm here to support you as a bass player. If you want it to be more than that, then great, but I think that, you know, music, the band, you know, you look at Motown. I know I'm rambling. But you look at Motown, right? Name some people from Motown, y'all. Just name some people. Temptations, Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, Supreme, Diana Ross, right? All these people, right? Okay. All phenomenally talented people. And there's a bunch of people that we didn't name that also got some bags off of Motown, okay? Weren't as popular or didn't have as long a careers. But if you listen to the band, y'all, just listen to the Jackson 5 band, you know, the records. Listen to the Temptations, listen to the Supremes. Don't you beg. Now, James Jamerson, that's my favorite electric bass player. That's the bass player you hear on 90% of those records. Okay, he pioneered the sound. None ever like him again. Died broke. All of them died broke. The Funk Brothers, there's documentaries about them. You can look it all up. The same thing with Stax Records, the Muscle Shoals, all the big record labels. The band, in my personal opinion, because you know it was lines out the door in Detroit at that little bitty house. If you've never been to Hitsville, you should go check it out. It's incredible. It's a 2-story house. 2 tracks. They recorded all that music with 2 microphones, y'all. Whole orchestras and stuff. Insanity. Anyway, like basically today, they have nothing on those people. Yeah. Nothing. Anyway, but my point is, there was lines out the door of groups trying to be at Motown. And they picked, you know, Barry Gordy and them picked who they chose. The point is that the machine they had, they could have plugged anybody in. Because the band, the wardrobe, and those people, that machine could have made anybody a star. And that's why they treat stars the way they do, because it's like, well, we just chose you. You're really not that special. Unless, you know, you got people like Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, because the Motown, they also chose artists who could hold their own. A lot of Stevie records, that's him on every instrument. Yeah. Prince, too.
We were talking last night after she had her show, and Aneesa was like, her dad called, and she had made this comment before he called, but then they got into it on the phone, and they are hilarious together, by the way. Imagine like a black male version of her. And so them bantering back and forth was just so beautiful, just to hear him hype you up and how, like, #1 supporter of your music. But one of the things that you all were talking about was like the drummer, and how that you were like, if I'm gonna have a drummer, this is the beat they need to be on. And I was chuckling to myself in the other room, but because I had never even heard of that as like a concept. So talk to us about, like, when you are performing with a band, what's important for you to feel good about like how the show was gonna go, and what role does the drummer play, and what do you look for in that drummer?
Yeah, the drums is everything, y'all. Come on now. The drums is the whole thing. It's pressure on a drummer, man. I don't want to be no drummer. That shit is pressure. Because, you know, that's the whole song, like the beat, especially if you're playing just live. If it's not backing tracks, that's everything. The tempo, all of that. So, yeah, when I'm looking to musicians, I'm looking for them to be versatile. I'm looking for them to, and that's why we had the conversation last night about the genres. You know, we categorize things to make it easier to sell, you know, to make it easier to understand. But when you look at the whole of black music, jazz, gospel, soul, funk, pop, R&B, rock and roll, you know, you name it, you should be fluid, which all has become American music now. You can call it black American, you can just call it American because everybody participates in it, and everything we do gets called American. No diss, no diss, no diss, just stating facts. But that's the whole point of the melting pot, is that nothing is really anybody's. It all belongs to the whole. So if you think about that, what I look for is a musician who's fluid. You know, we talk about all kinds of fluidities, but I'm talking about fluid through the genres. Meaning it's as easy for you to play hip hop as it is for you to play jazz, as it is for you to play R&B, as it is for you to play funk. Like I don't want you to be specialized. I want you to be like a journeyman or not a jack of all, what do they say, jack of all trades as a master of none, but so much better than a master of one. That's the rest of the expression. That's the rest of it. Because people are always trying to hate on the jacks of all trades. So they just said as a master of none, you're not a master of anything. But it's still better than a master of one. Yeah. If you had a master at something, right, that's up here, okay? You remodeling your house. You want just a master of electrical, or do you want a jack of electrical, plumbing, carpentry? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what a general contractor is. And they can hire out for the masters of those individual things. So that's how I look at myself. I look at myself as the jack. Now, I know what I want from the drummer. I'm not a drummer. Can I do it on the level he can? Maybe I can demonstrate a little bit. But I know how to identify a master. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I would say that. Now, about the Gen Z artists and people coming up, hey man, like I said, I don't hate no more because I see how ugly it looks when people get older and they hate on everybody coming up under them. You can't criticize them for having a different experience as you. The world was different when they came up. They had different circumstances. They are being vulnerable and authentic to their experience. So if people, and you also have to, this is my thing when I look at with artists. Every artist is not trying to be in the likes of an Al Green or a Michael Jackson or a Marvin Gaye. Like, every artist is not trying to be a legend in the music world. Some artists just want a couple hot songs. They just want to be cool. They just want to be a celebrity. They just want to make some music that is fun and is popping at the club. Like, that's probably not their goal. So I look at an artist, I'm like, her goal is probably just to make some club records. And she's doing a great damn job because I'll be turning up to that shit. So, you know, that's how I look at it. Now, my goal is to be, you know, with the Saints, go marching in, the great musicians of all time. You know, that's my goal. You know what I'm saying? So judge me by that. Don't judge me by like, oh, you don't have any club records. Well, that's not my goal. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Not to say that I won't be in the club with a record or two, but I'm just saying.
that ain't.
Right.
I want to talk to you briefly about spirituality because you are a Muslim. You grew up a Muslim. So for folks that are in this space, can you talk about how religion or spirituality shapes your artistry? And I was watching like this video that you were doing on Fender. Of course, it's on your social channels, but I was like on YouTube and it popped up too. So you were like explaining, like, you know, breaking down like what you were doing with this particular guitar. But I saw that you have your ring that you have on right now, which is the crescent and the star. And then you also had the Honorable Elijah Muhammad behind you. And so I was thinking to myself, like, as an artist, you're strategically positioning yourself in a way where there's no secret here, right? So talk about what that experience is, but also maybe before you get into it, maybe kind of explain to people the difference between Islam, because you have just on a very high level.
You know, you didn't tell me you was gonna ask me that. No, I'm just playing. No, but no, that's a good question. That's a very good question. Yeah, Nation of Islam and the difference between Orthodox Islam or Sunni Islam. Nation of Islam is here. It's a message and a warner and a prophet to the people who were once slaves in North America. It's for the former slaves who were captured and brought over here. Because every people had a warner. All in the East, they had warners, they had prophets. But these people was lost for 400 years, and somebody had to come to them and tell them the truth. The same things that Abraham and Jesus and everybody told those people over there. So the Nation of Islam is just our, God came for us, finally. You know, after all that suffering we went through, it's like, oh, finally he sent somebody for us. So that's what that is. And, you know, every people is more fond of and close to their prophet, you know. So Elijah Muhammad is ours. And so,
how does it shape your artistry, your musicianhood?
How has it shaped my artistry and musicianhood? Well, yeah, it's just, you know, we have expressions, you know, in the Nation of Islam, we learn all about, the aspects of the earth and, how the earth is spinning on its axis. It's rotating at 68,000 miles per hour and it's spinning on its axis in 1,037 and a third miles per hour. Like, we learn all about, like, the stars. That's why we talk about the sun and the stars, astronomy. We just learn about actual facts of how the earth moves, different people, our histories, those kinds of things. So taking that, like, all in, like, approach into music has made me like, okay, when I got to theory class, I'm like, okay, 2, 4, 6 Roman numerals, chords, diminished. It makes me a student, because the duty of a Muslim is to seek knowledge, and that's across Islam, even the people in the Middle East. That's, you have to be intelligent, or you have to
be in pursuit of knowledge.
You have to be in pursuit of knowledge always, and so go to the root, that kind of thing. So, and it definitely makes it difficult because, Islam is a religion that encourages modesty in your dress, and just, different things that make it difficult to be in an industry that's like sex. Right. Drugs, murder, drugs, sex. You know what I mean? It makes, and that's with anybody who is religious, because all the religions have the same kind of 10 Commandments, Moses' laws. Everybody follows Moses' laws, Judaism, Christianity, Islam. So, yeah, I mean, but at the same time, adding that with the Black experience and what we've been through, and, it kind of just gives me an edge that I feel free, I am boundless. And I, you look at the freedom of someone who knows who they are and knows their name, and you know what I mean? For me, it has been liberating.
I'm going to take this moment to open up the floor to folks in the audience. If you have any questions for Aneesa before we transition into your beautiful work. So yeah, yep, go ahead.
I have like 5 questions, so I'm going to let other people ask questions, and I'm going to raise my hand again.
Sure.
Start with the imposter syndrome, because that was a new term that I probably learned about like 5 years ago, and now it just seems like it's commonplace, right? Especially with the mental health movement. When there's imposter syndrome within common spaces, like within your family, like not just in a place where you're a black face in a room
Right.
full of people that may not look like you, but maybe you have the same education, the same background, or the same skill, but just when you're like in your everyday common spaces with even your own kind, do you ever feel that? You know what I mean? Because I feel like when you asked everybody in the room, like, does everybody experience that? I can even say that even for a moment like this, you know what I'm saying? Like, the perception, you know what I'm saying, and how we present, you know what I mean? And, oh, wow, I'm not loud enough. Oh my gosh, well, this is my opportunity for it to, so I won't say that I struggle with it, but I wonder if maybe I struggle with it more now that I'm conscious and aware of it. I don't necessarily feel like a phony when I go in places. I think I feel more like it because I'm not necessarily living out my true purpose.
Come on now.
You just answered your own question.
There it goes.
I did. Thank you.
You just.
Adama.
Adama, I had to say that loud for the folks that are, Adama, that I feel like, I'm sorry, you can take, yeah, I think that, that wasn't really a question, but I think if I could affirm you, I think that exactly what you just said is probably what keeps showing up for you. And when you're feeling like you walk into a space, there's something that you could and should be doing. Like, you go into a space, you're like, I could have did this way better than fill in the blank, right? Or I could have did this really well, or I should have done whatever that idea was, but you don't, and then you don't do it over and over and over again, and then you put yourself in spaces where you want to be inspired, so you're seeing people doing the things that like you're like for whatever reason haven't created the space to do yet. Like, that is, I think that imposter syndrome is real even when we're in spaces with people who look like us, but I think even more than that, that really is your underlying purpose saying, hello, Adama, right here, you can do this, right? And so I think that is stepping into your power by believing that you have the capability to do it is the first step. And then I think the second step is to to your point earlier, you start liaising and just like do the smallest thing first. Like, what do I need to do to get the smallest thing accomplished, right? Like for this event, it took us, what did we say, 10 days, something like that. She called me. I knew I was gonna interview her eventually. We planned to do that. But she had a show, and she lives in LA. She had a show up here yesterday. And she called me like, yeah, I'm gonna be in San Jose. I live in San Jose. So I was like, all right, well, now we have to do it, right? Because otherwise we're gonna push it off and keep pushing it off and keep pushing it off. Did I feel ready? Absolutely not. Hell no. Did I feel ready today? No. Like, but we was getting ready as y'all was walking in, right? But you gotta just do the thing and not be concerned about how you look, not be concerned about what people are gonna think, because it doesn't matter anyway, right? And so I think that's the biggest thing when you're thinking about that imposter syndrome. A lot of the time it's because of something unresolved that we're not nurturing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Got lots of hands up. Okay, go ahead, Yolanda. I saw yours first, then Rahul, and then we'll go over to you.
So Aneesa, you talked about the power of collaboration, and some of the greats like Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones working together. I would love to know who is in your manifestation journal. Who will you be working with and collaborating with? Because I'm going to get the ticket.
That's great. Is there like is there a finite amount? Do you want a top 3, or do you want like, I can just go on and on? Anderson .Paak. Yeah. I told him. I met him at a party. I was like, we gonna work. And he's like, okay, make it happen. So I'm gonna say that first. Who else I wanna work with? I mean, yeah, I wanna work with Pharrell, I want to work with Timbaland, I want to work with Missy, I want to work with, yeah, one more, okay, that's good, one more. Quincy, done.
There you go, yeah, that's a great question. Rahul?
You can talk about the pain and the triumph of being a musician who is well versed in the history of her craft, and also the process in a microwave generation.
No, I feel seen with that question. Yeah, man, it's hard, man, you know. So I have a master's degree in jazz studies. I hate even saying that just because it's so posh. Well, I have a master's degree in the jazz studies, you know, and it's like sometimes I feel like what a waste of time. And he said like, this is just sometimes I feel this way because I exactly, people come and they get famous off SpongeBob songs or just whatever. You know, you can just upload anything to the internet. You know, you can just have a natural talent. Like, for me to have gone in a time where you can just go viral on TikTok and build a following, for me to have gone through all this, sometimes I definitely feel like it's a waste of time. Like, and then sometimes I feel like it does hold me back because I know too much. And I'm like, well, that's an A sharp, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like, and sometimes that's why I said I've had to relearn just feeling the music and just being in the moment as opposed to being all theoretical all the time, which is why I resisted school. I hated school. I did not want to get a master's. I graduated from USC. I was done. And then my old teacher from when I was 13, who was like, you gonna be a bass player, you know, who made me play. He said to come to Michigan State and get my master's for free. So, you know, I couldn't say no. Anyway, but yeah, man, that shit hurts my feelings every day. Sometimes I just feel like I'm old and a waste of time. But then when I look at the truth, I'm a bad mamma jamma, man, you know? And I'm young and I'm fine. Don't nobody know how old I am unless I tell you. So, you know, but it's like, damn, she playing that bass like that, you know? It's a marvel now. So that's the pain, and the triumph is that, yeah, man, who does this? Like me? Nobody.
No, yeah, it makes me think about your birthday day. We were talking about this, and we have a few people that were there. Nikki here, Ellen, Rahul, of course, some friends. We went out for Aneesa's birthday. It was like first Friday. This was 2018. And everybody was, oh, y'all were there too?
Yes, I know.
Oh, hey. And Brianna was there. Oh, it was the whole party. Okay, so it was, we were walking by, everybody was out on this first, sometimes it's hit or miss, but everybody was out in the Bay Area at this first Friday. I don't care what city you're from. And we were walking by this, we were just having so much fun, just got through eating, drinking, now we dancing in the streets. And we see like a band like playing and, folks are just walking and Aneesa goes up to him and said, can I see your bass? He hands over the bass and she went crazy, y'all. We were like, oh shit, that's our friend. Y'all, when I tell you it was just like this crazy magnetic pull, all these people coming around while she just rocked out, and it was just incredible. That was incredible. It was probably one of my favorite Bay Area moments as a grown-up here outside in these streets. We had a lot of fun.
We did.
Yeah. You had a question, yep.
Yes.
Hi. So you talked about how your faith and your race has affected or impacted your music, and I'm just curious how being from Oakland has affected your music or your musical journey.
Well, yeah, people take me real serious. Like, oh, you from Oakland? Okay. We respect it out here in these streets. Because they know that we mean business. They know we don't play. And, even before they know where I'm from, they ask me, where you from? Because you got this thing to you. And I think that, yeah, being in Oakland and having to navigate, you have to be direct. You have to know where you're going. That's what saved me in Oakland, is knowing where I was going. Like, when I talked to people who knew me when I was in high school and middle school, they're like, yeah, I remember you. You was always a girl who was always walking. You always had somewhere to be. You'd be like, hey, y'all, good to see you. And you was on to the next thing, And so you have to be like that in Oakland. Otherwise, you're going to get pregnant, shot, whatever. I'm just playing. Being pregnant ain't bad. Being shot might not be bad. I'm just playing. No. But, yeah, so I think that being from Oakland has made me aggressive. Sometimes it hurts me because I need to be a little more, feminine and have a little more charm and do things in a more subtle way. But even if I'm behaving in that way, in my mind, Ariel, yeah, you should wait for the mic.
Hey y'all, I'm a little raspy. My question is a question I just was recently asked on a panel, and I thought it was a great question for creatives or just entrepreneurial women in general. And I think it's just based around like discernment. How do you balance what you do and relationships, friendships, love relationships, right? Because I think for me as a creative, wow, I'm so raspy, y'all. I kind of like it though, So like with friendships, I find myself sometimes people wanting to just be my friend because of what I do. And then I find myself connecting genuinely with people like how I connected with you, just off of creating and being in that space where it's just like we coming together to work and then we just hit it off like, you cool, you real, I'm real, you know what I'm saying, like that. But sometimes having that discernment is difficult, right? And then even with relationships, how are you balancing a love life and then just being so busy and not having the time, or, being such a boss, and some men can't handle it, so how do you, so what is the balance there with relationships in general and being a boss doing what you do in the industry?
That was a great question. Snaps. I think that as for the relationship aspect, well, I'll go with the friends first. The friends, real friends, I'm just playing. No, but real friends, we support each other, you know, because our lives change. Even, you know, you have friends, they may not be in the music industry or be in an industry that you're traveling a lot, but they may have children. They may be working full-time jobs. They may be, you know, married. They may have things on their job. I mean, all of us as adults paying bills have a lot on our plates. You know what I mean? So I don't have any friends that's just sitting around waiting for me to be like, where you at? You ain't never around. Like, you know, my friends are busy. My friends have lives, you know? So I think that's part of it, is like, even if you have friends, like, you got your friends in your industry, you have your friends, you know, that's like a separate thing, because like, oh, we understand each other, we relate, but we so busy, we really can't never see each other, you know what I'm saying? And then you have your support group or your friends who are not in your field, and they really just love you for who you are. It didn't really matter if you was a damn plumber or, you know what I'm saying, a baseball star, like it didn't matter to them. So I think just having people who rock with you for who you are is, you know, as well as all the other friendships that are fruitful and, you know, help you in your business. Just being open to all friendships and being communicative. Like, hey, listen, I'm not gonna be able to make this thing that you have. I know it's really important to you. Or, you know what, I can come, but I can only stay for, I can't spend the night. I can only stay for the day. Like, you know, just kind of understanding what's really like the non-negotiables for your friends. Like, if you miss this, dog, like, I'm gonna be done with you. You know what I'm saying? And then, you know, navigating around there. And then as far as the relationships and men being intimidated by you, for me personally, I like to take my boss hat off when I get home. Like, I don't wanna be in charge. Like, cool, you wanna drive, you wanna decide where we're going, cool, great. I'll just cook the food, and like, I love to cook. Like, so like, me, at the same time I wanted to be an artist, I always wanted to be a housewife. Like, I always loved like rolling towels and baking bread and like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, and like being like this, I always, like, cause I feel like a housewife is a star. A housewife, there's a whole damn series is the housewife stars. Like, a housewife is a star. Like, you're at home, you go to the gym, you have a schedule. You go to the gym, you wake up, you come back. You know, you're busy. You take the kids to school, you come back, you might get a facial or whatever, you know what I'm saying? You go to your yoga class, blah, blah, blah. You go grocery shopping, restock the house, you fold the towels and linens and da, 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 da. You know, you cook the food, you pick the kids up, you bring them back, your husband, hey honey, you looking fine for him. It's like, it is a job. Like the women who do that for real, like they're in a certain mindset of like, this is high performance. You know what I mean? Like, cause looking good, what Jasmine song say? Cause it ain't easy being this fine all the time. If it was, then we all could do it. But you know, a housewife is a star. For her to look like she went to work today, but she didn't, you know what I'm saying?
No, that's a really good point, because I have a few of my friends who are really, they're transition, like, and I'm speaking specifically about Black women in this particular conversation, who are like, I don't want to work hella hard. Like, I don't want to be the one that's grinding. I don't actually want to be pursuing a paycheck. Like, I would much rather homestead. You know, I'd much rather have somebody take care of me. I would much rather, and not just Black women, Black and brown women, where there's labor being done, whether it's intellectual labor or physical labor. So even having the desire, you know what I'm saying, to want to like have reprieve from that in your relationships with loved ones, with partners, I think it's such an important thing to hold, because Black women aren't, I was talking to one of my friends and she was like, you know, we rest on the go. You know what I'm saying? Like, we actually don't have that time to just not have to be in pursuit of something, right? So I think that's a really great illustration.
Yeah, and I think that many of the feminist ideologies, you know, that's like, talk about intersectionality and feminism. You know, when white women were fighting to go to work, Black women was doing all the work that they were, Black women were always working. Black women did, while white women were housewives, Black women were nursing their children and cooking their meals and cleaning their houses, and you know what I'm saying? Black women never had the opportunity to not work. So I think our feminism today, and I think that, you know, white women wanting to go to work at that time was absolutely pertinent for what they needed at that time. And I feel like now Black women are like, hold on, like this soft girl era, like, hold on, like we want a chance to just stay home and be cute. Like it's a shift. It's a shift where we're just kind of like, okay, we always have worked. We've always worked. Like when is our chance to stay home and rest? You know, we would love to be housewives.
So on that note, let's clap it up for Aneesa, y'all. We're gonna transition, but before we do that, I'm gonna hand the stage over to Aneesa. Before we do that, I just want to thank everybody who's tuned in for this conversation virtually, and thank all of you all for listening and being here. And Aneesa, just the nuggets that you shared today, so many bar drops, you know what I'm saying? So many mic drops, so many like moments. I can't wait to see the footage. But without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and exit this stage, and we're gonna transition a bit while you get set up, and y'all can feel free to intermission. Let's maybe take, how much you think, 5, 10? 5. Let's take 5, and we'll get set up and come back for Aneesa's performance before we sign on off.
All right.
Thank you.